There are so many skills that go into becoming a professional double bass player, and I love that Ron Wasserman put together this list of essential skills for professionals on the double bass. I'm going to go through and break down each one of these. I love the list. You can check out the complete list and the comments in the description below. Let's dive in. We dig into this topic and much more in our weekly email newsletter. If you want to keep up with the bass community, get free sheet music, and much more, consider subscribing. All right, we're going to walk the dog and break down this list from Ron. The number one, and I love that he starts out with this, is show up reliably. So just make sure that you're there every time, at least a half hour before the gig. And this ties into number two, which is never ever be late or show up at the last minute. And I was very much guilty of that when I was starting out freelancing, back when I was a teenager. Once I was freelancing in Chicago, I always made sure that I was aiming for, this seems crazy, but aiming for an hour before the gig. And then if anything happened, and something almost always does happen if you got traffic, like we always have here in the Bay Area, then I'm walking in at least a half hour before the gig. And not showing up at the last minute is so important for your own sense of stress and preparation, but also for those around you. You are working with these other musicians who will be recommending you or not recommending you, hiring you or not hiring you for future gigs. Where's Bob, or where's Jason, or where's Sally? That's not going to demonstrate consistency. It's just making sure that you are aiming to be there nice and early. Bring a book or play some games on your phone or whatever. Just set yourself up so that you're not running in a hurry at the last minute. That is not a good sign, and it's not going to lead to a lot of future work. Something in every bass player's essential kit is rosin, and this brings us to the sponsor of today's video, Upton Bass, with their new bass rosin. Upton offers two main formulations of rosin, Maple and Maple Plus. I've been using Maple for the last few months and love it. Maple Plus is a slightly softer version, and it's for people who like the feel of pops but want something just a little bit better than pops. And for those looking to fine-tune their sound, there's Upton's Honey Rosin. It's a harder, finer rosin that's great as a finishing touch. Learn more about these rosins in the description below, and thank you to Upton for sponsoring the video. Number three, know a lot of tunes, and that is true in any genre. If you're playing rock, or you're playing jazz, or you're playing classical, make sure that you know the repertoire. Make sure that you're well versed so that if you do get a last minute call, which is how you get into the business so frequently, you're not walking in without the right skills for the job. Number four, and I have been guilty of this, always say yes or no immediately. Never say I'll get back to you and then take a long time to do so. So when I get the call or I get the email, make sure that I have my calendar ready and I am able to say yes or no. Say, look, give me 10 minutes just to work something out, and I'll call you right back, or I'll call you back within the hour. But don't sit on the, Doug's going number two. Gotta take a break. Just don't sit on those hiring calls or hiring texts or hiring emails. Get back to the person, and if you develop the reputation as someone who gets back in a prompt manner, that's going to lead to more calls, assuming that you're doing a lot of the other things on this list. Live near the venue for last minute emergency sub work. And I'm learning the challenges of this right now. We're staying with friends in the East Bay, which is lovely, but I've gotten several last minute calls for the San Francisco Symphony, and I've been in the city of San Francisco working out or doing whatever, and then I have to come back to the East Bay here, get my bass, jump back in the car, and go. So if you can live, and I know it's hard and it's more expensive in most cases, but if you can live near the city center or near the gigs that you're trying to get, that's going to facilitate last minute calls. That's also good as you're building your career, because people know that, oh, Jason is close, so if he can do it, it's not going to be some complicated thing. These days, classical is what I do, but back when I was younger, I was playing jazz, I was playing rock, I was playing electric bass, and just learn it all and try it all. You never know what's going to resonate with you. If you'd asked 14-year-old Jason what he'd be doing on the bass, classical would not have been the thing I would have said. I would have been thinking metal or punk or something like that on the electric bass. But I got exposure to other genres, and here we are. Number 7, play rhythmically accurately. Yes, the details matter. And if you, one of my old colleagues said, if you could play all the right pitches at all the wrong times, total mess. If you play all the wrong pitches but at the exact right times, you're just being modern. And there's a little bit of truth to that. If you can really hone your rhythm and really play different figures, dotted eighths, sixteenths with absolute precision, practicing your scales, practicing different rhythms, being consistent, doing this on a daily basis, you will build this foundation and skill set that's really attractive for musicians in any genre, and that's how you're gonna get hired. Number 8, dress correctly. So while I could show up to the gig like this, and people that are members of the San Francisco Symphony do, and I'm not showing up in a suit and tie, I do try to look presentable, and I think that's even more important when you're starting out. You are projecting an image of yourself in your music, but also in your presentation. If someone shows up sloppy, dirty, it's going to send an image of disorganization. So putting a little bit of thought into what you're wearing, again, coat and tie, not typically worn for any gigs these days, and that might actually be a little bit weird for the gigs I play anyway, but just making sure that you're not looking like a total bum and just rolled out of bed like I just did. Number 9, know when to lay out to avoid falling into traps if the piece is under-rehearsed, as they often are. This is the voice of experience, Ron Wasserman here. So when in doubt, leave it out. I think that that's something that we bass players can learn to do, and if I am sight reading, like I sometimes am when I'm getting a last-minute call for the San Francisco Symphony, I've done enough of this over time to know that, yeah, if I'm not sure if it's F natural or F sharp, maybe leave that one out. Now, my wife, who was a professional harpist, I remember she got called to play harp for Madame Butterfly, which has tons of harp solos. You can't leave those out. So they went well or they went not so well. We bass players have a little bit more, and especially if we're playing in something like an orchestra and there are other bass players, just learning to exercise caution and maybe not be too confident. Something hasn't been rehearsed a lot. Is it in 2? Is it in 4? Develop that spidey sense and you'll figure it out. All right, I'm running out of breath. We're gonna take advantage of this bench here. Number 10, tell amusing stories about the music business. That's an interesting one. So I think I'm gonna interpret that as be somebody that's fun to be around. Don't be too serious. I like to have a good time. I like to crack jokes. Know when to do that and when not to do that. But I think, yeah, be a pleasant person to be around. That's maybe my spin or riff on that one. And by the way, this whole list is in our DBHQ community group, and so we will link up to that, and there are lots of comments and additions to this thread. Very fun, and I love seeing people getting involved and adding their 2 cents like they've done for this thread. Number 11, have a pencil, rosin, and phone charger to lend. That is a good one. I can't tell you how many times I've lent my rosin to other bass players, and we bass players are such nerds. It's fun to try out other people's rosin. I make sure that I have a kit with me at all times, and so I've done a whole video about what I bring to the gig. I'll link up to that here. But for me, yeah, phone charger. I use this little Satechi brick that does wireless charging these days. That's pretty cool. Earplugs, mute, towel, all those things that you need. They all just make you prepared for the gig, and again, they make you seem organized. And then if somebody forgets something, which we often do, even when we're trying our best, you have something to lend out. Having an extra pencil is great, and you will be amazed how often somebody, even at a high-level situation, needs that. So be ready, be prepared. That's all going to contribute to a sense of you being someone reliable and that they'll want to hire. Be able to fake it. Never heard the piece before? No rehearsal. Conductor is a little help. Make it happen anyway. I did a whole video on faking it, the art of fakery. It's something that you learn as you go. I remember we were playing Beethoven's 6th Symphony just a few months ago when I was subbing in San Francisco, and the storm scene, if you've ever tried to learn that, good luck. I think that most people would not want a microphone to be put directly on them during those passages. I know I wouldn't. So yes, faking it, it's a real thing, and learning how to do it will help your life. Number 13, bring candies or cookies. That is a good one. I am, I'm a bass player, so bringing beer at the appropriate time, probably not for the 10 a.m. rehearsal, but I've shared many a beer post-con. I see so frequently people bringing brownies, bringing whatever that they've got, or at post-Halloween, bringing in some stuff to share. That's just a great way. Little things like that really help to instill a sense of camaraderie. Number 14, good sight reading skills. Yes, I find myself sight reading more than I probably want to these days, and it is something you can develop. There are apps, many apps out there at this point that will help you develop those skills, and just pulling out books of orchestral music or jazz tunes or anything and just practicing sight reading. That is, and just playing as many gigs as you can. Learning in a vacuum is great, but when you're actually on the gig or playing in front of people and you've never looked at that chart, those skills come in real handy a lot of the time. Number 15, know and remember the moral of when drums stop, very bad. Yeah, you know, whenever somebody in the bass section plays on after the conductor stops, and this translates over into other genres, it seems like that's the moment that you play with your worst possible tone, or you play a little out of tune or something like that. Just, yeah, learn to stop when everybody else stops. Yes, very bad. I like that one. Number 16, play in tune. Surprised you put it that far down the list, but I think that that was intentional just because all these other, being a good colleague, being consistent, being someone reliable, and intonation obviously is so important. I will link up to some here, but yes, very important skill that I'm working on every single day. And then number 100, be able to play solos in the high register. I did a whole video on things that annoying stand partners do. I probably should do a round 2 of that at some point, and this is thinking about the classical string section, of course, that video is about, but it translates over to other instruments and styles of music. Link up to that here, and we'll see you in the next one.